Chapter 533. After that, Yudir unknowingly dozed off again. By the time he jolted awake, unaware that he had even fallen asleep, Kishiar had already taken care of all the aftermath. He didn't know how it had been done, but his body was clean, and apart from a lingering sensation between his legs that felt like they were still slightly spread apart, everything felt incredibly soft. The only remaining evidence of what they had done here was a sofa whose cushions had irreparably sunk into the floor. The intact sofa across from it, which looked like its twin, only highlighted the damaged one's pitiful state. The frame is sturdy, so that should be fine, but I think the cushion will be difficult to repair. I will have it replaced by the end of the day, so don't worry about it. Yes. Yudir hoped that Nathan Zuckerman would not be the one to handle the replacement, but what could be done? What had happened had already happened. Late as it was, Yudir resolved to restrain himself from losing control around Kishiar in the office from then on. However, that resolution dissolved like sand before a wave when confronted with the man's vibrant cheerfulness as he handed over a fresh uniform and gloves, saying they would be leaving soon. Though they had spent hours entangled on the sofa, Kishiar looked as fresh as ever. Naturally, considering that he was someone with whom Yudir could easily spend the entire night, his stamina was truly impressive. By the way, when did you prepare these new clothes? After the vacation, Kishiar responded as if it was obvious, flashing a playful smile. I kept an extra set in case something like today happened. If you find it difficult to dress yourself, just say so, and I'll help. I can dress myself. Yudir declined and put on the clothes himself. Once fully dressed, Kishiar looked at him with satisfied eyes. I had them tailored to your height, so as expected, you look even more elegant. Is it more comfortable than before? Is it? Yudir furrowed his brows, looking at the sleeves of his new uniform. Although it did feel a bit more comfortable in terms of movement, the whole notion of looking elegant still felt like a foreign concept to him. Yes, it seems so. You look like you wouldn't know the difference as long as you can wear it. I never said such a thing. At that, Kishiar burst into laughter. Hearing it, Yudir suddenly felt an overwhelming, tender, and loving sensation flood into his chest. It was something unfamiliar permeating through his skin and mind as if in resonance. It was Kishiar's emotion conveyed more vividly than ever before. What did he look like in Kishiar's eyes? He hadn't said anything that should elicit such a gentle emotion, yet for the first time he was curious. As the dusk fell, they arrived at the Sun Palace, where they were greeted just as before by the white-haired chief steward. Welcome. I trust your hasty journey was without inconvenience. No inconvenience at all. His Majesty has finally given his permission, so what could possibly be inconvenient? Kishiar's cheerful answer seemed to relax the steward's brow a bit. His gaze then shifted to Yudir, who was standing behind Kishiar. I have heard that you have been granted the title of Baron. Congratulations. There was no sign of discomfort in his elegant and formal tone. Yudir silently bowed his head in acknowledgement. Thank you. Her Majesty, the Empress, is also waiting for the both of you today. Shall we go? The Empress, who had miraculously swayed the heart of the once relentless Emperor, arrived early at the Sun Palace. She sat at the spot nearest to the entrance of the second palace, waiting for them. Welcome, Duke, and Yudir? She gave a small smile in Yudir's direction. However, that smile quickly faded, obscured by her deep, thoughtful gaze. I assume you have heard. His Majesty has granted permission for you to assess the current condition of the vessel. However, discussions regarding his healing are strictly forbidden. This was something they had already heard on the way. After Yudir had responded that he would be cautious, Kishiar interjected with a sly smile. Will Her Majesty be accompanying us throughout the process? No, I plan to wait in another room nearby. While I certainly would like to see it for myself, I doubt His Majesty would approve. Kishiar seemed to easily guess why she had come all this way despite that. Understood. Once we are done, we will meet with Her Highness again. I would be most grateful if you do. Your Grace, Duke Paleta, His Majesty has informed us that he is ready. At that moment, the chief steward, who had disappeared earlier, reappeared to signal that the time had come. The Empress also stood up, glancing at Kishiar with a look that said, "Don't forget our agreement," before firmly grasping Yidhir's hand. Her slender fingers trembled, but so subtly that only someone in contact with them could tell. Yidhir. Though the grip was neither painful nor imposing, it felt oddly powerful. The only help I can offer you is this. I sincerely pray that you will perform the same astonishing miracle for His Majesty that you did that day. ... Yidhir looked down at her hand, gripping his, then met her eyes and nodded. Yes, I will honor the faith you have placed in me. Emperor Kelusa was in the very bedroom/office where he had visited to receive treatment after retrieving the red stone mediums some time ago. Although the room was still small and modest for a place where an emperor resided, filled with clutter, it also looked different now, given he was managing affairs even while ill. The only changes in the room were chunks of redstone mediums filled with power and placed in a basket on the desk, and the emperor, who looked a bit more frail than he had a few days ago. You're here. We are not meeting to engage in elaborate formalities right now. Let's keep the greetings as brief as possible. From the beginning, the emperor declared that he would not stand on ceremony, unlike their last meal together. His eyes swept over the faces of Kishiar and Yidhir, who had knelt and offered their brief salutations. After gazing at Yidhir for quite some time, the last look he gave was to his younger brother, who was smiling innocuously. But Duke, what happened to your neck that you had to seek treatment? Did you sustain an injury that even divine power could not heal? Yidhir silently swallowed the breath he almost let slip. I knew this would happen. The emperor had pointed to the few pieces of gauze that covered Kishiar's neck, where naturally the imprints of Yidhir's fangs were visible. Although he possessed magic power, Kishiar had deliberately chosen not to heal the marks. Instead, he placed a small piece of gauze over them and tied a brightly patterned, white ornamental tie to cover the red marks. Neither the chief steward nor the empress spoke, so Kishiar had hoped he might escape detection. But the emperor's keen eyes were not so easily fooled. Quite the opposite. I left it to be precisely because it's not a severe injury. Kishiar calmly responded, whether he was aware of Yidhir's feelings or not. Some wounds can even become a point of pride, he continued. So you're saying you have left the marks on your neck because they are a point of pride for the Duke? The emperor inquired. Yes. The atmosphere became tense. The emperor looked intently at Kishiar's face as if he desperately wanted to say something, then slowly shifted his gaze to Yidhir. Yidhir quietly lowered his head to avoid the emperor's probing eyes. After a moment of silence, the emperor relented. Fine, if you are well, stand up and come over here. The emperor put on his glasses, looking suddenly tired, and gestured. Without a word, the chief steward, who had been standing rigidly nearby, poured tea into 3 cups. The atmosphere was somewhat more relaxed than it had been at their first meeting. Eating and drinking in the emperor's presence no longer felt as awkward. The reason I have summoned you today is that I have heard the opinions of those around me suggesting it would be unfair to dismiss your abilities without seeing them for myself. They say that your mere observation of a person's condition can bring about miracles, almost like ancient magic. Everyone in the room knew who that opinion came from, but the emperor neither uttered the empress's name nor elaborated on why he had changed his mind. Yet, when he mentioned the opinion of those around me, his eyes momentarily took a different weight, a pained look that could not completely conceal a tender and warm emotion. It was an emotion that would have remained hidden if they had not been sitting so close. The true feelings of Emperor Kelusa. If you can indeed do as they say without causing any harm, then I'm willing to give you this one chance, the emperor stated, but with conditions. Kishiar was not to intervene, and should the emperor decide to stop, Yudhir would have to cease his observations immediately. When asked if he was willing to agree to these terms, Yudhir responded without hesitation. Yes, of course. Emperor Kelusa's eyes narrowed for a moment. A soft sigh, almost inaudible, escaped from his pale lips. Why did it have to be like this? He muttered, almost to himself. Pardon? Never mind, let's begin.